So, who wants to learn a little bit about hydraulic fittings today? Let me show you what I work with. This type of fitting right here is called pipe fitting or pipe thread. You have to have 2 wrenches holding the one fitting on the hose or on whatever part you're working on, and then this could be a hose or the other part that you're screwing into, and it threads together, and as it gets closer to each other, it threads in and tightens up on the threads and it becomes a sealing surface. And this is fitting that changes the size from one size to another. And this one here is a pipe swivel, female swivel, and its sealing surface is that chamfer on the inside there. And what happens is, instead of it sealing on the threads as you tighten down to get it tighter, you crank it down, and then the sealing surface is actually where this inside face meets and seals with that inside face. It's kind of hard to see, but it's it's not a flat sealing surface. You can see it's kind of got like a lip, chamfer, whatever you want to call it. So that's how it tightens up, and to be able to get it to tighten up and seal, you tighten it down, and then once this piece is locked solid, you try and give this one just a touch more to make sure that those 2 surfaces are tripped down nice and tight, and you won't have any leaks. Now we go to a newer, more commonly used now fitting. This is called a JIC fitting, and you can see the JIC has a face here and a face here is where it seals and becomes one that's locked down and tight to seal off any kind of oil leakage. And that's a little bit newer style. And then the most common fittings that you would work with nowadays is called an O-ring face, because of course there's the O-ring, that's the sealing surface, and then the other side is just a flat. So if it's a pipe, of course it'd have a hole in the center. If this is a hose, and then this would be the other side. But these are caps, so that's what these are. These are, when you pull something off, you cap off so you don't make a huge mess. But this is the O-ring face. The nice thing about O-ring face fitting is 9 times out of 10, you only have to use 1 wrench to break it loose. GICs are a little bit nicer, but you have to have most times 2 wrenches to be able to break it loose, and then you can spin it off by hand. On a pipe, almost 9.99% of the time, you have to have 2 wrenches and a lot of muster to break these damn things loose. I just fought one on a crane I'm working on in a tight spot. That's the part that sucks about pipe style thread, is you have to have 2 wrenches to break them loose. You almost have to have both wrenches on there the whole time getting the hose or fitting loose, and most times you're not working in a very nice open up area. It's a very tight area, so it's a pain in the butt to get into to tighten or break loose. And this style here is what the Europeans use. This one here is a Gic Male with a O-ring boss. This is the part that threads into whatever part you're working on, a cylinder or a block, valve block, whatever. And that's where, of course, it seals the oil from being able to escape. The Europes, like Germany and Italy, on some of their cranes that I work on, they use this style fitting where the fitting itself has a groove cut out, and that's where the O-ring sits in, and that's what seals the surface. This fitting here in America, the part that you actually thread this into has a chamfer or a groove cut in it to where this O-ring can seal off and mate and locked down so it doesn't have any oil leaks. And the European style fitting, this is the other style that they have. This is one where you can adjust so you can get the right angle to line up to your fittings. And then it has a compression washer, a lock nut that actually threads down to compress down on that washer. Then it has this outer ring that holds the O-ring from being able to moosh out, so it seals the surface. And it's just a flat surface. The part that this screws into doesn't have to have that machined surface in there. It's just a drilled port with threads cut into it, and then this screws in, and this O-ring acts as the machine surface like this one, and it holds the O-ring into place. And you have, you know, just barely any kind of O-ring pushing out here, and it actually compresses into that ring and it seals. So it compresses against the outer ring, the fitting, the inside diameter, and it compresses down and locks it down. So right there's just a few of the fittings. The ones that I prefer to work on, that are a lot easier to work on, of course, is the O-ring face. But the older machines, like this 90s model crane that I'm working on, it has everything is this style fitting, a pipe fitting, pipe thread style fitting, and it just makes whatever would take an hour to get apart, you're looking closer to 3, sometimes 2 hours to get apart, just because it's that much more difficult to get into, especially with trying to squeeze in a tight spot with 2 wrenches. So that's what I got for you today.